Hello and welcome to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. This is your magnetic business podcast. This is the podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to grow a magnetic and soul-aligned business without burning out or selling their soul. My name is Maggie. I'm your business mentor and human design expert with nearly 20 years of business experience and spiritual learning. I help you turn that messy momentum into aligned strategy that actually converts. This show is where we blend spiritual self-trust, practical business moves, and the power of your unique energetic blueprint. So if you're ready to build a business that feels exactly like you and sells like crazy, you are in the right place. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I'm your business mentor, your human design expert, and today we're talking about part 2 of harnessing your authority for sales success. So last week, I talked all about sacral selling, utilizing your human design sacral authority to sell in your business. You guys really popped off about that last week. Loved that episode. So I am back this week with your emotional authority. So last week, I know I talked about how the sacral authority and the emotional authority are the two most quote unquote popular authorities in human design. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things before we dive into this week's episode. So one thing I want to make very clear is that every single sale, no matter what your authority type is, every single sale starts with a conversation between two people, between you and someone else. Every single sale is going to be a conversation, whether that is something that is spoken or written or typed or whatever that is, right? Whether that is content or a sales call or something in between, it always starts with a conversation. So the better you are at having those conversations, the more clear you can be, the more simple. And I say simple and simplified with a grain of salt because obviously there's going to be nuance. There's going to be different, levels of clarity and so on and so forth. But the better you can be at executing these conversations, the easier it will be to sell. And if you start to utilize your authority, okay, your decision-making tool, this can be your anchor. It can help you understand where things are right, where things might be off. So this is something that I use a lot with my clients because it's basically a compass for you to navigate with. So like I said last week, think about your human design like this. Let your authority be your anchor. Let your strategy or your type be your attractor, right? It opens the doors. It brings the people in. It gathers the people towards you, right? Your profile is your voice. That's how you're getting your word out, how you can really maximize clarity on that. And then your centers, your gates, and all of the rest of everything, that is like the spice. That's what makes you you. So as far as emotional authority goes, if you've ever felt like you're too slow to sell or you're selling too slowly or not enough, or you're too emotional to make decisions quickly, or you're inconsistent with your energy, this one is definitely going to be for you. Because when you allow your emotional wave to lead, you're going to see shifts and changes that you never expected. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click the link below to grab the magnetic client blueprint. That is going to be part of your guide to really, really digging into this and starting to understand how your human design can work for you and with you. So let's go ahead. We're going to get into it. We're going to start with a little bit of the basics about emotional authority. Now, I know last week I talked about, 3/4 of the population being or having their sacral defined. That does not necessarily mean that all of those people are a sacral authority. In fact, more people are emotional authority than sacral authority. But a lot of people have their sacral defined as well as their emotional solar plexus. So if you go and look at your human design chart, you're going to look for a triangle that's pointing towards the square on the bottom. It's going to be on your right-hand side if you're looking at your human design, your emotional solar plexus. The other side is your splenic, okay? That is another authority that I'm going to get into next week, selling with splenic authority. So if you have an emotional authority, you're not meant to make decisions in the moment, which this is a whole side note here. So when people are teaching sales and they teach, go through all the objections, this, that, and the other thing, keep the person on the call until you get through all the objections. That's actually not quote unquote right for someone with an emotional authority. And if you're an emotional authority and you're trying to sell in that way, it probably feels really spammy and scammy and icky to you, right? And this episode is going to teach you a little bit of how you can navigate your authority plus understanding other people's authority. So just know that if you're an emotional authority, you are meant to ride the wave. And that is the emotional rise and fall before you come back to clarity, before you come to that neutral place where the decision is just very clear. Now, I do not have an emotional authority. However, I have served clients. I've worked with clients who do have the emotional authority. And one of my kids is an emotional authority. So I've seen this play out in real time. And it's very interesting because it's not about a gut yes or a gut no. It's really about giving yourself space to feel and process and then no. So even if you have your sacral defined, you'll often get that gut yes or no. And then you need to kind of sit with it to make sure, okay, is that the right choice for me? Because the thing that most people miss is feelings are not facts. And if you're solely acting on those gut responses, it's going to feel wrong. It's going to feel yucky. It's not going to feel great. And you're going to be left with this like, oh, here I am again. I'm not selling once again. Okay. So just know that the highs aren't the truth. The lows aren't either. Clarity comes after your emotional wave settles. And something that when I work with clients, especially if they have emotional authority, we go through and we look at what is that wave? How does that wave work for you? What does that wave feel like? How long does it typically take based on the kind of decisions that you're trying to make, right? A good buffer is usually 24 hours. Now, that doesn't mean that, I have to think about today what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow, right? And I can't decide until tomorrow what I'm going to have. It's more geared towards feeling into, well, how does this feel? How does this sound right now? Does it sound good? Yes or no, right? And then understanding that there's going to be a wave, allowing yourself to be like, oh, tacos. Yes, this is what I really love about tacos. No, this is not what I really don't love about tacos, right? And then coming to that clarity. That's for smaller decisions. So for bigger decisions, you have to ride that same wave, right? And you have to understand how your body is reacting and working with those decisions. So not long ago, I had a client that I was working with who she had emotional authority, and we were talking all about what she wanted to launch. And she started listing off all these things and wanted to do them very quick, short succession. I'm going to do a masterclass, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do that. And, I let her talk, obviously, right? Let her say all these things. I was kind of, taking some notes, writing some things down. And, after she was done, we looked at this laundry list of things. And I said, how does this make you feel? And have you sat with all this? Knowing that she is a emotional authority. And she took a deep sigh and she said, well, it feels like a lot, but I'm really committed this time. I'm really committed to doing all of this stuff. And here is really where emotional authority comes into play, because yes, you may have all of these ideas and you may want to act on them immediately. And especially if you're a manifesting generator, I see this a lot more. People who are mani-gens with emotional authority, just trying to act on every little thing and not taking the time to think about it. This client was not a manifesting generator. So, for her, she was trying to keep up as if she was a mani-gen with a sacral authority, so understanding that you can take time to decide and you don't have to have everything done yesterday. You can make decisions and move forward at a pace that actually does feel good for you. So, what we did then was we took all of the stuff that she was talking about. And because I had, written it down on a whiteboard in Zoom, we looked at that list and then we started breaking them up into 3 different scenarios and 3 different strategies, if you will, because at the end of the day, I am a business mentor and a business coach. So I want to help you with your business, not just your human design. Human design for me is like the icing on the top that gives you like mini strategies to follow so that you're not like, oh my God, I have everything to do and I don't know where to even begin. So we laid out 3 different scenarios right on the call. And then her homework was to sit with those scenarios and message me back the next day. Message me back which one felt right. And she didn't need to have a reason. It was just, let me know what feels right, 1, 2, or 3. And if you don't find clarity in about 24 hours, we'll text, voice note, back and forth. We'll talk about it, work through it, figure out where the uncertainty is, and then, you have another day or so to figure out. Because number one, when you work with me, I don't want to see you just succeed in business, right? I want to see you succeed in all the things. Like I want to help you in a well-rounded manner. So because I want to see you succeed in business, I want to give you the strategies and I want to help you figure out what strategies feel best for you, because I'm a sacral mani-gen. So what feels best for me might not feel good for you, and that's okay, right? That's where utilizing human design is so clutch, because you get to decide what feels best for you. It's not me telling you do these 27 things and you'll have success. That's not it, right? So we put together those scenarios and then I gave her time to reflect and to ride the wave, to make that informed decision. And it also gave her a couple of paths to follow, right? It gave her choices of like, okay, I have choice A, B, and C, and I have a direction that I can go in. And I knew when we were on the call that, one of those would probably be right for her. And, here's the thing about business is that you have to be super willing to be uncomfortable and try things. So yes, I wanted her to have clarity, but also when you're putting yourself out there as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to get a little uncomfortable and maybe reach outside your comfort zone every now and then, right? If everything was easy, everyone would have a business, we would all be millionaires. I would not be talking on this podcast, right? That's just the end of the day, right? So not everything is going to work all the time, but if you try all of those things, right? She had enough things that she told me to do 3 different launches. And we probably could have taken that in 3 different directions, each one of those in 3 different directions. So if you're willing to get a little uncomfortable, if you're willing to, kind of go all in for longer than a week, and I say this as much to you as to myself, because I am definitely, right? Like I have gate 29 in my personality sun, which is the yes gate, right? I'm a sacral, I'm a mani-gen. I am hardwired. When I tell you I am hardwired to say yes, I am hardwired to say yes. So I know from personal experience that you cannot do 3 different launches for 3 different things all at once because it will confuse your audience. I've done it. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. And because at the end of the day, a confused audience never buys. They are going to be like, I don't know which way is up. You're always talking about something else. I don't know. Right? So if you're not making any sales right now, or if your sales are lower than what you expect them to be, regardless of your human design authority, your audience might be confused, right? So that little tidbit right there is literally for everyone. If you're not making the sales that you are wanting to be making, your audience might be confused. Full stop. So go and do an audit, right? Look at what you're talking about. Is it confusing? Is it, are you going deep enough? Are you being clear enough? Because that's also something that happens. Okay, so let's get back to my client. So she came back the next morning, super pumped, voice note, and told me that as she was going to bed, things just clicked and she just knew what option was best for her to move forward with. And she was like literally so excited about that. And she had already started kind of piecing things together, which is so awesome because now of the 3 options that we laid out of the things that she wanted to do, she came with this mega list, right? We laid it out in a way that felt good for her. She was able to say, okay, I'm choosing this one. This is what I'm committing to moving forward with. Let's start the process of doing the things that are on that list. And that was so exciting. And she knew that she had 24 hours. And she said to me, she was like, I wasn't sure until all of a sudden it was just there and it was just clear and it was just evident that, well, yeah, obviously I would choose this option. And, she also knew that after about 24 hours, we would reconnect via Telegram, right? Because when you work one-on-one with me, you have voice and text, right? You can text me and we can work through things in the minute. It's not just calls. So she knew that I would be there about 24 hours later to help her work through the process again and re-clarify things if it still felt murky. And this is where being like a CEO versus an employee in your business, this is where you have to differentiate between that because you need to be able to make the decisions. Now, I know obviously you can't take 24 to 48 hours to think about everything, but as you start to learn how you process things, this will get easier for you. So this not only allowed her to really understand her process of her decision making, but it also allowed her to feel clarity and it allowed her to notice what riding that wave felt like. And she said to me after she got off the call, she's like, after we got off the call, I really felt like, oh, woof, what did I do? Oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? And I told her that might happen, right? I told her like, you will probably go through a range of emotions and it's okay. It's okay to feel those emotions, like let that wave ride and just allow it to come and wash over you because clarity will be on the other side. You're going to feel the low, you're going to feel the high, you might feel the low again, you might feel the high again, and then you're going to come back to clarity. And that is what is key in this episode. So next, I want to get into some mistakes that if you are an emotional authority that you might be making as someone who is selling something, right? So it's all well and good for you to know what the decision-making process feels like, but how can we apply this to sales? Because emotional authority in sales can feel a little bit like fire and fog, right? Where it's like just crazy. And let's be honest, selling with an emotional authority can really feel like trying to pitch a program while you're riding a roller coaster, a different roller coaster than the person you're on the call with, right? So if you're a coach, you're a mentor, you're a service provider, and you have emotional authority. I want to give you the 3 common ways that you might accidentally be sabotaging your sales flow. Like with my client, right? She was trying to sell on a high. So a lot of times people will sell in the high and they wind up saying yes too fast. So, you get that spark. You have the, oh my God, this is the best idea I've ever had. Suddenly, you've built everything. You've got the Canva graphic, you've got a sales page, you've got a new offer, and little to no clarity. And that's what I saw with my client, right? And that's what we worked through. We worked through those scenarios and how those might play out and what, the different ways each of those scenarios could work for her. What was the best case scenario? What were some real numbers that she might actually see when she executed any of those, right? And this especially shows up if you have a defined sacral, right? That excited, yes, yay, oh, I'm excited. That can really trick you into launching something that you haven't actually felt all the way through, that you haven't ridden that wave. And there is no shame. And when I say no shame, I mean there is no shame in saying, I need a little bit of quiet time away from this to make my decision, to come to clarity. And again, this is a whole side note, but this is why I sell the way I sell, because I love to, number one, be able to look at people's human design charts before I get on a sales call with them, because then I know how to approach the situation, the call, so that they can have the best experience and make the best choice for them. Because I am a sacral manifesting generator, right? I have those, yes, yep, no, yes, no. I have those immediate responses. When you know somebody else's human design, you can then approach that and say, especially if they have an emotional authority, you can say, hey, why don't you take 24 hours and think about this? There is no shame in that. And I say that because, I've been told, I've run the gamut of like, you need to sell harder. You're not asking enough questions. You need to be pushier. That's not how I sell. So getting back to something you might be sabotaging yourself with, right? You're selling in the high, you're saying yes too fast, because hype does not equal clarity. And I will say, if you have a defined sacral, you probably feel this a lot more. So your hype doesn't necessarily equal clarity. Your passion doesn't always equal preparedness. If you have your chart handy, a pro tip is to look at your chart and look at your personality view alone. This is going to see how your conscious mind, right, your outward self makes the decisions. It'll help show you the pace that you're designed for, and definitely the clarity checkpoints that you might be skipping. Now, this is a whole other episode, but I also want to put in here that if you look at your chart and you look at the personality and design views separated, one of those might be a reflector. So for me, I am a 1-4 Manny Gen, right? Sacral manifesting generator on my design side. Like that definitely shows through on my whole personality, but my personality in my human design chart is a reflector. And, I always kind of wondered, like, why do I feel like I need so much time to think about things and process things? I am a sacral Manny Gen. I'm supposed to make decisions left, right, center, right? It's supposed to be easy until I looked at that. Right. And again, that's a whole other episode that I want to get into because it's so fascinating and can help you understand the more detailed and nuanced parts of human design. So we'll get back to that in a future episode. All right. So you're selling on a high, you're selling too fast. On the flip side, you're selling in the low and you're pushing through those emotional dips. So if you feel like you've ever forced yourself to show up during a low, right? Because the algorithm, quote unquote, needs you, or you've ever launched a program while like secretly hating all your offers or feeling like absolutely no one's going to buy anyway. Why are you doing this? that's your emotional low talking. It's not the truth, which is why if you are unhappy with your offers, this is why sitting with your offers, especially if you're an emotional authority, this is why sitting with those offers is so important, because it's not going to be the truth talking, right? If you're like, oh God, no one's going to buy anyway. I don't know why I'm doing this. Maybe I should just, go get a job, whatever the thing. You're trying to force through instead of pausing. Like I said, it's not, you can take 24 hours, but this is where people get stuck, right? They get stuck because they're like, oh, Maggie told me I can pause. Yes. And I also want you to see that you can't stay stuck in the pause, because people will also get stuck in the pause, in that low, and then they won't make a decision. They're not in integrity. And then, that little voice in the back of your head is like, see, I'm right. Okay. So that's also something I want to get into in a future episode, is how to work through some of that stuff. So the third thing I see a lot of people who have emotional authority doing is they're over apologizing or over explaining your need to take time. Listen, if you need 24 hours, if you need 48 hours, that's fine, right? Especially in a sales situation. Like if I'm selling to you and you have an emotional authority and you're like, I just don't know. The decision is not clear right now. That's okay. I am happy to say, okay, let's come back in 24 or 48 hours. Not a big deal, because I know that more people have emotional authority than sacral authority. So if I haven't looked at your chart and we're on a sales call and you tell me that, totally cool. I'm totally down with that, because I respect your knowledge of how you can deal with that emotional wave, right? So this is a big one, the over apologizing, over explaining, right? And a lot of people, instead of saying, I'll get back to you, or can I get back to you? Can we revisit this in 24 hours, 48 hours? Instead of just ending it at that, they'll spiral into an explanation of why they need that thing. No. And this is what I teach my clients also. This is how I teach them to approach sales in a very easy to navigate way, because you're not going through the 100 objection questions. You're not going through the, well, if money wasn't an issue, You're not going through that, because I trust you enough to know what you can and can't get yourself into. I don't need you to be like, oh, I have to go ask, when really you're like, this is a no. Or if really you're like, I really do need time to think through the emotional wave, right? You're not flaky, right? So this can also show up in your sales if you're an emotional authority, by delaying the opening of your enrollment because something doesn't feel right yet. And suddenly you're just trying to justify it to your audience, to your coach, because I've had clients do that to me, and it's okay if something doesn't feel right. So here in this third one, I wanted to help you reframe this, because this third one is actually something that I see a lot: the over apologizing, the over explaining why you need more time, right? So if you feel like, oh God, I'm constantly asking for more time, here is the reframe for you. You're not slow, you're being considerate, you're considering. Right? Sales does not reward the fastest, it rewards the most aligned. So when you can feel aligned in your sales methods, or when you're purchasing something, or when someone is purchasing something for you, you will see that come back to you. And really, that's your edge as an emotional authority in human design. You sell best when you trust your wave, and you can let people feel your certainty, not your speed, right? Remember, the tortoise and the hare. The fastest doesn't always win, Okay, so if any of these sound familiar, that's good. Awareness is like the first step to moving out of this. So, next, I want to talk just a little bit about how to actually sell in alignment without second guessing your every move. Because it's one thing to notice these things, and it's a whole other thing to get into alignment when you're selling. And a lot of people I've found it's really challenging for them to sell, right? And back in the beginning of the episode, right, I talked about having better conversations. Sales conversations are one of the conversations that you're going to have, right? So, how do you actually sell your offer as a coach or a mentor or course creator when you've got an emotional authority, right? So, number one, you don't want to ignore the wave. You want to build your sales strategy around the wave. That's why it's so important to understand how your decision making works, because you're going to understand that wave that happens. You're going to understand what the high, what the lows feel like, how they run through you, and then you're going to understand what clarity also looks like. So I'm going to give you a 3-step blueprint to selling with emotional clarity instead of emotional chaos, because honestly, most people are trying to sell like they are a sacral authority when they're really an emotional authority. So if you have an emotional authority, definitely write this down. Okay. So number one, make space for your emotional clarity. Before you launch your program, before you open enrollment, before you post the sales, the CTAs, right? Or even respond to a sales conversation, I want you to ask yourself, have I ridden the wave on this, right? Don't confuse excitement for alignment. Like oh my God, this is amazing. That hell yes might be a high. If it's a true yes, it will still feel like a hell yes tomorrow or in 12 hours or in whatever that time period is. Okay, so practice sitting with your offer for 24 hours, especially in the beginning, because it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, oh, what if I added this? What if I added that? No, sit with that thing. You can write down those extra things to be like, oh, this idea came up, that idea came up, blah, 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 right? But sit with your offer for 24 hours, right? Journal on it, voice note about it. If you have a defined throat center, speaking it can often help you roll through the wave. You'll either feel grounded or you'll realize things need tweaking. Now, if you're thinking about this, if you're processing this and you're like, oh, here's the 27 things that I want to add. Again, ask yourself why. Is this a tweak? Is this because I'm still riding the hell yes? Have I experienced the low? Like, journal and write and talk about and think through all of that, right? Because this space is going to protect you from regret, resentment, and those random pivots, especially if you're a Manny Gen, right? I see this all the time for manifesting generators, like, love you, but I am a manifesting generator. I feel like I'm the pivot queen also. It's okay to say, no, this isn't going to work, actually. Okay, so that's step one, making space for your emotional clarity. Step two, you're going to set emotional expectations. And I would love it if you could do this out loud, especially if you have a defined throat center, because that's going to help cement things in, right? Setting the emotional expectations really builds trust with your audience and your collaborators, but it also builds trust with you. It helps you step into integrity in a way that you probably have never stepped into it before. So instead of ghosting when you're unsure or rushing into a launch that you're going to hate later, right? Whether that's later that day or in a week, right? Try this. Okay, so I want you to try something like, this offer has been on my mind, on my heart, and I'm giving myself space to feel into it fully before I open the doors. And this is something you can say, especially if you're collaborating. You can say this to your collaborators, right? I need to take time and space to feel into this, and, let's make the final decision tomorrow. So you could also say to your audience, if you're curious, I'll be sharing more once I've had time to sit with the details. Now, you don't always have to share this with your audience because sometimes oversharing can be the bane of your existence, especially in social media where we like to see things yesterday, right? So, however, this is something that, especially if you have a small community or you have a small Facebook group or a following, you can say to them, like, hey, I have an offer that is brewing. I'm super excited for it. I am in the space where I need to sit with the details, make sure it's 100%, and then, let me know below if you want if you want to know the details, if you're curious about it. This really will help you model leadership and integrity. So you're giving yourself an emotional expectation. You're giving yourself a boundary to say, hey, I've created this thing and now I need to sit with it. And I'm going to come back and tell you it tomorrow, in 24 hours, in 48 hours, right? So you're not selling reactively, you're selling resonantly. You're selling what is resonating, what you're seeing. Because like I said, sales, none of this stuff is like life or death, right? It can wait 24 hours. It's okay to wait and to think and to allow yourself to ride that wave. Also, people don't want you to be frantic. They don't want to feel frantic because then they're going to feel frantic. And then they're like, I don't know why I'm making this decision, but there's franticness, right? And yes, that can sell, but it's often going to bring in clients who aren't actually aligned. So people want someone who really trusts themselves enough to wait for the real clarity. And again, that clarity doesn't have to take days. Most of the people who I've worked with who have had emotional authority, and it's been manifesting generators, and projectors. I've worked with all three of those types who have emotional authority. Most of them, it's about 24 hours that they need to really sit with and allow themselves to feel the up and down. So trust that this will work for you. Okay. And then the last thing, ride the wave in your content, right? That like little emotional nuance, like that is your superpower for storytelling. Share that. And it's not like a 24/7, like always on, always selling, but you can talk about, oh, I had this emotional hit. Like this offer downloaded, wrote down all the details, and now I'm going to sit with it for 24 hours. And I'm going to be back in my stories tomorrow talking about the highs and the lows that I experienced when I put this offer together, when I put this thing together. People want to know about that. And you can also weave some of that into your launch or your nurture content, things like earlier this week, I was riding the wave of a creative high and felt ready to literally blast this offer from the rooftops. But today, after that, I decided to take 24 hours to allow myself to slow down, soften in, and understand even more so that I know this space is for the right women at the right time, right? So you're not selling from urgency. You're selling from certainty. Again, your audience doesn't need you to be emotionally flatlined. They want your truth. They want your wave. They want your depth. That's what your audience is going to crave from you. It also builds connection. It allows for really, really great conversations. And that is what is going to really make a sale feel right for both parties. So you're going to, again, start attracting those soul aligned clients, those people who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't find you sooner. I'm so excited. So last week I gave you a little mini practice for all of my sacral girlies. So today I'm going to give you a mini practice for all my emotional girlies. And this is something that this week I want you to, before you say yes or no to anything in your business, I want you to pause. I want you to give yourself 24 hours. Now, this doesn't mean rot on the couch because, that's a real thing. But here's the thing, especially if it's a big thing in your business, like say you're deciding to launch something, pause, give yourself 24 hours. Let the emotions move. Let yourself feel the wave, the high and the low, maybe even take note of what that high and low feels like, and then make your move. Okay, so you're not too much. You're giving yourself space to decide with depth, and that is truly your superpower. So, the reframe that I want you to hold based on this episode: your emotional wave is not a weakness, it is wisdom. Okay? When you honor your wave, you will sell with power, not pressure. Sales will come so much easier when you honor your wave. You're going to attract the right people and you're going to repel the wrong ones. And that's okay. That's what we want, because yes, you can sell to anyone, but you can't serve everyone. Okay? Especially in a service-based business, not everyone is your ideal client. So if you want to learn how to use your emotional authority in your sales process, if you want to go deeper, I have 2 options for you. So number 1, you can grab the Magnetic Client Blueprint. It's free. It's your starter kit. It is linked below. Or you can join the sprint. So the sprint that I created is an email course. It comes 1 email per day for 2 weeks, 20 leads in 2 weeks. And this is going to teach you how to align your energy to your lead generation. And this works for everyone. Okay. I've had reflectors, I've had projectors, I've had generators, mani-gens, manifestors. I've had everyone, like all of the types, join this sprint. All of them have seen over 20 leads in 2 weeks. Most people see sales in 2 weeks because they're aligning with their energy. So the sprint link is also down below. It's $97. And right now I'm including a free Telegram chat where you can connect with everybody who is in the sprint. And that Telegram chat is for sure open for the entire month of August 2025, maybe longer. I might decide to leave it open longer. But for right now, it's open for the entire month. So everyone who joins between now, the time of this recording, and the end of August, so probably I'll leave it open into September, you'll get access to that Telegram chat. I'm going to be in there. All your friends are going to be in there. We're all going to be talking about our wins, things that we might get stuck on. You're going to receive coaching from me. You'll get coaching from feedback from your peers. It's all in there. So you can go grab the free Magnetic Client Blueprint. You can grab the $97 sprint. Or if you want more one-on-one support, if you want to dig deeper with this with me, there's also a link to sign up for a clarity call with me where we're going to talk all about what is going on in your business, where you want to be, where you are now, how you want to get there, where you're stuck, and then we'll figure out what one-on-one options are right for you. So we'll talk all about the magnetic method. And I hope this was helpful for you. So make sure if this resonated with you, slide into my DMs. Let me know what resonated. You can find me on Instagram at Maggie Lynn Mentoring. And let's have a conversation about what you loved, what you're resonating with, how this is all landing for you. I can't wait to see you again so soon. Thank you so much for tuning into the Chaos to Clarity podcast. If today's episode gave you an oof moment or a hell yes moment, a truth bump, or just a fresh perspective, I would love to hear about it. So make sure you go right over to Instagram, type in at Maggie Lynn Mentoring, or click the link below in the show notes and slide right into my DMs and let me know what hit for you today. And if you're ready to make more sales, you're craving more flow, more clarity, more sustainable systems, then the magnetic method is where we take this work even deeper. This is my high-touch one-on-one mentorship for women who are ready to lead with their energy and scale with intention. So make sure you either click the link below or again, head over to Instagram and DM me magnetic, and we will kick that off with a call. I am so thankful that you're here. I can't wait to talk to you again. Make sure you tune in to next week's episode.